Testing mic 1 2 3 4. Testing mic 1 2 3 4. Test, test. Okay, let's do this thing. Chat box is kind of hard to read. Let's fix that first. Chunk. That is good. That's better. A bit. Alright, stop messing with it. Stop messing with it, Swan. Alright, share. Gotta tell everyone about the stream. Cool beans. Okay, doing some stuff. Gonna do some drawing while I wait for more people to get in here. Plus, it's not even 11 yet. Ain't no starting this stuff early, so I'm gonna draw some cruddy. Is he a doctor? No, I think he's just entropy captain of evil. Green guy of dastardly deeds and professor of clocks on his chest and hat. That is his official jam. Yay! I should draw some Crash Bandicoot maybe. Hello Juan, how you doing? How goes? Happy Saturday to you. I've drawn so much Crash, but I still want to find a reference image so I don't make a fool out of myself. For I am vain like that. Also, it's been a long time since I've played Crash. I miss him a little bit. Trying not to give him creepy eyes. A little bit creepy. I guess that's Crash. Hey, let me know if the sound levels are bad or if I look funny. No, don't let me know if I look funny. I already know I look funny. But if it's something I can fix, be happy to fix it. Oh yeah. So for my videos here I got playing, and we'll watch the one with sound later because I can't get the sound working in Flash. Probably because it's an ancient software that no one is using anymore, but yeah, so we'll watch the video of the shots I'm gonna look at today with sound in a little bit. But that's what I have playing on the bottom left here, and then on the bottom middle is just, it's actually a playlist of videos. There's my recent reel that's playing now. There's my supervisor. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not my recent reel. So my recent reel's playing now, and then my supervisor reel's on there. I think there might be one other one. It'll be a surprise when that comes. But yeah. For the notes today, I'm using Flash CS3. It's not even the most recent one. But as I said, it is a now defunct software. Rest in peace, Flash. I'm hoping to learn new softwares like Toon Boom and stuff. Get comfortable with Sync Sketch in the near future, but yeah, I just haven't been able to bite that bullet. YouTube is saying that it's not getting enough stream information. I hope my stream quality is not crappy. Someone let me know if it is. Alright, I need a new thing to draw. What am I doing here? I'm going to play... so that you can watch it barely from my webcam. Whatever, this setup is a little bit rushed. So this is a still from my senior thesis. The chair here used to have a face and teeth. The teachers convinced me not to do that because it would have been a rigging nightmare, and rigging this chair was actually already a nightmare, so I'm very thankful I listened to the teachers. But it was a pretty fun idea. Something much more feasible in 2D animation than 3D animation though. Because you used to do a thing where like the mouth would open really wide and like crazy teeth would pop out. And it really wasn't necessary. Especially because over time the chair became sort of an ambivalent, sort of loving, half overbearing character. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you. I will fix that. Okay, hopefully that's better. Let me know. And hello, Worms. How you doing? Trying to get a handle on this live streaming thing. It's craziness. I don't know how people do it. All right, it's 11 o'clock. Assuming that the sound levels are better, let me know. We can get started. Oh no, I think I maybe am having some internet issues. I seem to have lost everyone. Trying to get a handle on this situation before I start. Test, test, test. 1, 2. Okay, now it's saying my health stream is excellent. So that's good. Well, that's not awesome. I'm gonna have to yell at my cable company. Thanks for the report. Hopefully, maybe I'll go slower so that the freezes when they happen aren't awful. But do let me know if they are continuing and awful. I'll try to do what I can. All right, so I'm gonna pause the music for a second so I can think better. Let's take a look at the shots we're gonna look at today with audio first. And I've shrunken it and I've muted it. I'll make it bigger here, and I am not entirely sure how. Okay, it's about to reset, so I will mute it now.
It's filthy outhouse. Come on down to Dingo's Diner. Food served at Dingo's Diner may not meet the legal definition of food. Consume at your own risk.
Outside. What? No. I'm sure
Some of these shots
innocent knows how to obey orders.
Entropy.
Take your ship to
Planet
I tried to do
Bermuda
it in
and be
order,
on the
like,
lookout
these are
for
some of the
ships
first
approaching the
professional
Rich
shots I
General.
ever made.
We can't afford any unwanted
Real
visitors.
effects.
At once,
For
your
TV.
foulness.
You manage our affairs with such poise.
Naturally, as do you.
Okay, animation mixed with some, like, yikes. Why did they do that? Here's a quick shot from the Simpsons
Barf.
ride that we'll talk about.
Chewie, time to fly. Lola, give him a lift.
It's happening! Flying pig!
Well done, my friend.
Blasted
Good.
bandicoot!
Glad to hear it.
Must we keep
There's a
going
bunch of open
around
season
and
2
around
shots.
like this?
There's a few open
Tell me,
season 3
Crash.
shots.
Is this all there is? Forever? No.
Spent a lot of time talking about this one. Yikes. This is okay. Starting open season 3 now. This is not the world's greatest animation, and we're going to talk about why. It's certainly passable. I mean, I got all these shots approved, right? And we had time budgets and all that. We'll talk about the individual specific setbacks
Five,
and
four,
you know, when it was a lack on my part.
Enjoy the breeze with our
Some
innovative
Secrets of the Furious
dining
5
room
shots.
design. Dingo's Diner. Health and safety rated
And
D.
then
Warning, D is a failing
some
sanitation rating and does not
stuff,
stand for
other
delicious.
commercials, not the movies. This is for a Transformers toy commercial. And showing some Minions.
We did it!
Yeah, we
stuff.
did.
This was probably the
Wait,
most
Tana? But you're
soul-crushing
You're not from our
project of my career,
universe.
I think. Yeah, definitely. Still the case. Not really much context. We can talk about why.
And my potion will make me
Some Freebirds. I think
Them
it's just these 2
unstoppable.
shots, but
Right, you're fine, Joe.
they're my
Have fun
least
with your
favorite shots.
ray guns or whatever.
I only have the one Book of Life shot.
Hasten your
Again, it's not a
steps.
horrible
By
shot.
my
but I have
calculations,
to
our
do
enemies are
why I
already
really
moving against us.
some
And
Rock
we
Dog walk cycles. There's a
will
walk cycle here
prevail.
from Stormland. We'll talk about why I hate that. And
Already moving
some
against
Blizzard
us. And we
Warcraft
will
cinematics.
prevail.
This is kind of a mashup between Hearthstone and Overwatch. It's all coming at me so fast.
It
Here's some
appears to
scoop.
be a space between
There's
dimensions.
actually some good animation
Could be
in here,
nothing.
but then there's some
Be
really
a
bad
cascading entropic fissure that will soon turn the entire universe into a formless soup.
We'll talk about.
Time will tell.
Please
allow
talk
me
about
to
that.
Right,
And
yes,
why that happened.
Blank. I am the all-seeing cosmic prophet of interdimensional sector 2255 phase
Yeah.
Omega.
It's certainly
I
possible,
can't wait
but
to see the look on the
it's
Queen's
better.
face
And then
when
some,
she sees
Ratchet and Clank
exactly
stuff.
who double-crossed her.
Many reasons to talk about
So we
is just really not some of my best work. This is the most recent. So that was 2 years ago. Cool. So those are all the
Very
shots
nice.
with sound. I'm gonna go ahead and mute that now. Excuse me, I have a runny nose for some reason. All right, get shrunken, please. There you go. I'm gonna bring back a little bit of soundtrack, but like not much because it was too loud before. It's still kind of too loud. There we go. That'll do. Okay. So, starting with my senior thesis shots. Oh yeah, and before starting, I wanted to say, please interrupt me and ask questions so that I don't blow through this thing, and we actually have some time to spend together. So Worms, thank you for asking. Worms asks, was it funny to work on both a new Crash and Last of Us game and out of Naughty Dog at the same time too? I assume you mean Naughty Dog there with the ND. It was amazing because they were pretty much, they were back to back for me. I went on Last of Us. No, almost back to back. There was a couple months in between where I think I was working at PsyOp on some Clash of the Clans commercials, but then I went on to work on Crash, so it was almost back to back. One of the most violent projects of my career. Like, the only really violent project of my career, and then Crash Bandicoot, which is probably one of the more G-rated. There's some teen humor in Crash Bandicoot, but it's meant for kids. It's meant to be all ages. And yes, it was very funny. But that's kind of one of the reasons I sought out working on Last of Us, is because I was a little bit tired of working at Real Effects for 10 years on all these. You got Minions, and you saw The Littlest Pet Shop, a lot of cute stuff that I was just getting kind of tired of. So I wanted to scratch that adult itch, and The Last of Us, that was like a 2-year project for me almost. So that was more than enough violence, I think. I hope that answered your question, kind of what you were getting at. But if you have, if I didn't, just let me know. And I'll clarify. It was very funny. Let's go ahead and clear these drawings that I did, so we can talk about my senior thesis real quick. Yeah, just seeing your show reel from early. It was a night and day kind of project to project, but it keeps me on my toes working on various different styles of projects, and that's something I'm hoping to do more in my career if I can continue to be lucky as I have been. All right, so there's nothing happening in this shot. I just wanted to draw on top of it. But here's a shot of this character Chunk that I made from college, and it's not horrible. There's, in a lot of my shots, like, I know how to polish in a sense of, like, I know that things need to be smooth, but especially early on, my foundations were all not fantastic. I was not animating from all views at all for many, many years. I was maybe posing in 360 degrees for a little bit at the start of blocking, and then I would never look back. I would just be in this camera animating. And so my depth, my 360, my rotations were always a little bit contrived and never entirely clean. But that's not really what I wanted to talk about with this shot. The worst part about this shot for me is he's supposed to be thinking the chair just made a move, and he's like, what was that? And the chair's not moving now, so he's thinking like, okay, I'm gonna leave. But the big problem here is that he looks straight up into the ceiling. That's not straight ahead towards the doorway, which we are now cutting to for clarification. This is where he's going. But it's now a personal peeve of mine, and it's one of the things I see wrong the most in animation. And I mean good, polished animation. I mean Disney. I mean whoever is your favorite. Pixar. No one, and especially with realism, eye lines and realistic eye movement is just, it's hard to animate. It's hard to come by, and you can, if you're really looking for it, you can find mistakes everywhere. And here's a really jarring one that every time I watch this short, I can't get over. But them's the breaks. As far as other stuff for this shot, you can see that his hand, I'm gonna make this red so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see that this hand here, when you watch it, right around there, it sort of wiggles around. You can see that it's not planted on the thing. I mean, no one's looking down there, so it's not the worst. And you really have to be looking at it. But this eyeline thing, that's where the audiences should be looking at, and eyelines should be perfect, in my animator snob opinion. And then back to back, my other least favorite shot in the thesis. These are the only two that I really can't stand, and it's because I was terrible at walk cycles. Still not great at them, but I'm better. I think I understand the foundations of the body mechanics a lot better now. But again, here we're having examples of I knew how to polish. I knew that things needed to be smooth. And I can hide this to make it easier to see. I knew that things could be smooth, but my foundations, my body mechanics, he's got his arms aren't swinging with the legs, and in opposition to the legs. So your left leg goes forward, your right hand arm goes forward, and that's just a foundational rule of walks that isn't really being paid attention to. With like, if you watch, let me know if you guys can't see these markings I'm doing. Hopefully, yeah, they seem to show up okay. But I'm talking about the screen right arm, his left arm here, and it's just, it's got a lot of side to side movement. Because, again, I was not really animating these things from the side view. Because my camera was here, I said, all right, everything needs to look good in this camera. And that's a super noob mistake that, not only newbie animators make, but longtime animators continue to make in various levels. So I wasn't really looking at this guy in the depth, so I wasn't getting that swinging arm motion like this. Of course, I'm exaggerating from this angle, but that wasn't animated well. Like this kind of motion in his hips, upper body, that kind of rocking thing wasn't really well paid attention to. If you track his head, it kind of jitters around a little bit instead of actually flowing with his steps and letting the core drive all the action as the hips rotate. The hips don't feel like they're rotating all that much correctly. It's just like the legs are moving on their own without the hips being connected. So tons of stuff wrong there. But I shouldn't rag on myself too hard. I was a college student still. Now we're going to get to the stuff. And if you have any questions about those shots, like what the hell is this that we're looking at? Or if you just want me to move on, please shout out. Let me hear it. Otherwise, I'll move on to my first animation, CG animation, I guess industry job, which was working on ABC's Princess made-for-TV movie. Now, the worst part about that shot here is that these fairy creatures have these huge, long trails of sparkle that happen behind them, and I wasn't really. I paid some attention to the arcs, but like, I didn't pay enough attention to the arcs. This. Gotta get my keyframes on. This feels like there's a hard bend here. It feels another bit like there's a bend here. And then this is just, it's fine. That part's fine. But like, if you really wanted to make it, and again, I'm using Flash, so my line work is not fantastic. But I would have filled out this part of the arc to be more round. And then, this probably could have stayed the same. Maybe a little wider just for more variation in the shapes. But that's the stuff I was not really paying attention to that. I was more freaking out about the fact that there's a flying monkey, there's a dragon, there's 3 fairies, there's a lot going on, and they had to reasonably interact with these live action characters. I could rag on the winged creatures from here, but it's a little bit compressed looking and hard to read, so I'll move on to the next shot where we have a winged creature, and it's a lot easier to see. I think the worst part about this winged creature for me is that he or she, I think it's a whelp, it's got these huge flapping wings, and it looks heavy, right? You can see there's thickness in the wings. You can see that it's a lizard and it's got a lot of meat to it. So those wings have to do a lot of work to keep all that weight up. And right now that dragon thing it's not moving up and down much. It's barely floating. It's kind of hovering in place like a hummingbird almost. You can see a little bit of motion, but just not enough reflected in the back. And it doesn't have to be like, but like it's that motion minimized down to like 5%. Just a little bit of unification between the body and the wings as it's The wings push down, the hips go up, and none of that's really being fleshed out here. It probably does, Worms. If you have any ideas on how to make that solution better, I'm all ears, but otherwise, I might have to answer your questions a little bit later than you asked them. We'll move on to more interesting shots now, because the main thing I wanted to talk about was the wings on that. Here's one. I guess that intro one's not terrible, but it's nice to show you what we're dealing with here. It's a weird tentacle thing that's about to grab this guy. This is the shot that is really problematic for me, because I'm really just leaning on the rig to do this thing where I place these controls. Let's see here. I've got a control here. I've got a control here. I've got a control here, all the way up. Doing this, the path that it's basically taking as it snakes up, which is great. It saved me a lot of work to animate this thing snaking upwards. The problem is, if you're looking at like this piece as the camera pans upward, it's like frozen in air. Yes, there's snaking happening through it, but like the actual placement of it, it's not being affected by gravity. And yes, you can say this is a very strong tentacle. It should have the ability to keep itself up. But whenever you look at something in nature like that, the longer and heavier it is, the more it's going to have wobbliness at the end as it tries to balance itself. And really what's happening here is just a straight mechanical snaking through the path that never moves. And yes, some of that should happen, but yes, I think it would look a lot better if this arc started to trail off into an arc like this, or just a mild adjustment, so that as we're trailing up, it doesn't feel like a robot. See, we're getting some of that in the tip here. I'm snaking up and then I go up and down, but all of this down here is still like hanging on to that path. That was never fantastic enough to hold for that long. But yeah, I was a new animator, didn't really know what I was doing, and you can see some pops here in the end. No, you can't. I'm tripping. And then, I don't know, I guess the animation's not the worst in this shot, but the comping isn't fantastic. Doesn't look like it's really in the shot with him. Like the dark levels are weird. But I am not here to critique the wonderful lighters and compositors that worked on this. We all had crazy time budgets on these things, and not a ton of resources to get the job done. So that's why it looks like this. Again, these aren't horrible for young junior animator Eric, but conceptually, this step is atrocious. Why is it so atrocious? Well, okay. Conceptually, this dude's got a giant pole sticking out of his hand. Paw. Whatever. Alright. That's what this shot's supposed to show, is that he's injured, because the hero's going to go save him later and pull it out. But what's happening in this shot is he's taking a step with that injured paw, and then there's like a quick hobbled step with this paw. And if you think about the order of the operations, it's like, why did I do it in that order? Why wouldn't that creature, try to move forward with that foot? Second of all, that step that it just took was barely even a step. There's nothing really happening there. It's not moving forward. It's not trying to locomote forward. It's not trying to dodge. It's not trying to move anything. It's a needless step. So basically, the creature's hurting itself for no good reason here. It's putting its weight on its foot that it doesn't even need to. So I just, could have thought about the order of operations better there. This shot is a real quick one. What's so bad about this one? It's not the worst, but what really makes it fall apart is you can start to see too much recoiling in the head right before it gets hit. And a little bit of that's fine, right? You can argue that the lizard is seeing the dude about to swing. He knows it's about to get hit, and it's bracing for impact. A little bit of that's fine. And I'm doing a little bit of that here on the first few frames. Where it really falls apart is, hey, video game animation study, how you doing? Welcome to the party. I was telling these guys, feel free to interrupt me, ask questions. I will just try to take a look at chat whenever I see something pop up, and yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I hope this is a cool idea enough that this video doesn't stink. And we're starting right now with some of my oldest work. This is from Princess, very old ABC made-for-TV movie. But I just had one thing I really don't like about this shot, and it's that he takes all of the impact out by backing up so much before the impact, and it almost feels like the head rotation on this one impact frame. It's almost like he's getting hit in the head before he's getting hit, right? So it's very, very blurry. We can imagine that maybe the axe is somewhere in here. Maybe, yeah. Okay, we could say it's here. But if you're looking at how much this head is moving on this frame, you could argue, yeah, well, the nose should be moving over here. But the back of the head has moved from up here all the way back here. It would have been so much stronger if the snout gets moved first, and then the back of the head follows. But that's not what's happening right now. It's almost like the creature is dodging the hit, and that was not the intention. He was supposed to get a nice smack in. And so when you watch it, it's like, okay, you know what really kind of sells it is that little shake he does afterwards. And I think that might have been a note from my supervisor to make it feel like he got hit better. But I think what we also could have done is really pushed that that sense of, I think this might be a good one to do a draw over on. So we'll say the axe is like this. This would have been a good frame to have the top of the head still, and these are the eyes, still up here. Oh, grr, I'm an angry dragon. By the way, I still talk and make sounds when I draw as an adult. It's the best way to draw. So the back of the head and the eyes are still up here, but the snout then could be like, oh snap, you bent my snout, and trailing this way, where on the frame before the snout was over here. So you would get that big motion adjustment here, and then the back of the head can start to trail. But it's not. You can see on this frame, he's completely straight on to camera. There's not this sense that the snout got hit first. It's like all is moving at once, and so the idea that he got even hit is dubious. It doesn't read as well as we could. So one more time, we'll watch it, and then we'll move on. It could feasibly be a near miss. And of course, I don't know what we could have done from a comping lighting standpoint to make that interaction feel better, but probably not much without having a CG axe, which we totally didn't have. We were at the mercy of whatever the live action plate was doing. We won't talk about that one because it's not the worst. We are here to talk about stuff that is the worst. Okay, so what else is the worst? The Simpsons Universal Ride. I haven't been to either of the rides that I've worked on, the Simpsons and the Minion rides. One day. Maybe COVID's making that a little bit harder these days, so maybe that won't happen, but I've certainly seen them on YouTube. And that's kind of why we have a really shaky camera in this clip, so I apologize. It's also really blurry, so we won't spend too much time. It's a little hard to see. And that doesn't necessarily make things better. What I wanted to talk about was this path of action on the saw blade, especially as it lands down. I have my excuses for why this animation looks this way, but I'll save those for later. But the really bad thing, I think, is if you're looking at this saw blade, this teddy bear saw blade here, that's I need to add more keyframes. Clear keyframe. Okay, where were we? So this teddy bear, panda bear saw blade that's up here, on its path down, there's no sense of pushback. There's no sense of friction. There's no sense of it's like nothing's being cut. So the first point of impact cut is here. Where it should stay is along this path on the next couple frames, but it veers way off to the right. And this project is like 60 or 90 frames a second or something. I don't think that's what we have here. It's probably reduced down to 30. But it's a short amount of time before, when I play it back, you see that blade hop right over. And that quick move, when it's already dug down into I believe these are supposed to be wooden bleachers these guys are sitting on. That quick move kills all the believability that this is cutting through some heavy material. And so that's not a great start. And when it gets lower, it starts to feel okay. Like the movement that it has is a bit more erratic. And where's my camera? It's a bit more erratic and tighter. So it's not like it's like there's more friction. And so the movement feels better. But that first move, when it first touches down, it's just like, ooh, like it slips. And so that kind of kills that moment for me. And then that's not even to speak of all the other characters who look like they are really roughly blocked, and then someone just hit spline and called it a day. That's because that's what I did. I called it 2 days. Actually, this is actually a project that we had to help out with over the course of a weekend. Literally, this is my first time getting overtime pay. They gave us Red Bulls and like coffees every couple hours. It was insane. So I started this shot and finished it within like Saturday to Sunday. And of course it's not a shot because it's a ride, it never cuts, but we blend into another animator's work right after that. So yeah, I didn't have any time to really finesse things, or even, they didn't even have many notes for me. It was just like, we need to get this thing done. Look at how Sideshow Bob's head just snaps. Pop. That's a nice look. It's like almost in stepped. I remember spending a little bit more time on Homer because I wanted to, because I like Homer. That's never a good way to do your animation, guys. You shouldn't just clean up the characters that you like. You should clean up the characters that are most important to the story and communicate to the shot. And I dropped the ball on that because that character here is the Saw. Way to fail. Okay, moving on. Any questions on any of the stuff we've looked at? Am I talking too fast? Oh, yeah. So I didn't animate it on a path. No, that's really kind of what I should have done. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, that it kind of moves around too much. If I animated on a path, then it would have stuck to that path a lot better. I keep looking at the wrong monitor, and yeah, sorry. What I did was I animated it in an FK arm. So it was a lot harder as the body moved around to maintain the position of the saw on the bleachers and get a nice path that it cuts through. So you're getting a lot of that jitter. It certainly could have been done with FK, but I didn't have the time to clean it up. Something like this with all these characters to make it look nice. Like at least a week. I know it's not very long, but it's a lot of characters and there's some crazy action going on. Yeah, so excuses. Were there any other questions on The Simpsons or any of the stuff that we've looked at? This terrible princess. I should be nicer. People out there may really like the Princess movie on ABC. When I say terrible, I mean that is my own opinion. I didn't love the movie. But it does hold a special place in my heart as my first TV movie credit. Okay, thank you for the question, DJ C Ghost. Moving on. This was for a Littlest Pet Shop commercial. I tried to look for the commercial itself, but I couldn't find it, and I spent much too long looking for it. It's not worth it. What's so terrible about this besides its horrible, creepy design, you ask? Well, not a lot at first glance. But if you were hanging out earlier when we took a look at my thesis, you'll remember me talking about how I wasn't really good at animating in 360. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I mean I'm just animating to the camera that you look at, that the viewer looks at, not considering what it looks like in 3D space. What am I doing depth-wise? I'm just paying attention to the camera. So this is another case where I did that. It would take me many, many years to drop this habit. Terrible habit. But you can get good animation without doing it. So what am I talking about? Well, again, it's all really hard stuff to see from this angle. But I can guarantee you, if I were to draw this horrific creature from the front view, remember this is the side view, essentially. He's looking at camera. This is the side of his body. If we were to look at him from the front view, here's the horrific head. The giant eyes are looking this way. Here's the nose. I know, and I can tell, what's happening here is he's not properly aligned. The pose doesn't look good from the front. Now, this is the front angle, remember? So what I'm trying to illustrate here is that the paws, the feet, are not really underneath the giant head. The weight is not dispersed correctly. And it's a little bit hard to see from this angle, but I can kind of tell that that's happening. That's happening there. There's another place where he starts to veer deeper depth-wise, but I know I'm not cleaning in that axis. I know I didn't really consider it as much as I could have. And also, there's no sense of pull if it's a dog or a cat. I think it's a cat. Oh my gosh, what are you? There's no real sense in... There's a cute little slide here, like it's a slippery floor. Sure, okay. But here's where the traction starts to kick in. But no, it's where the traction should start to kick in, because it's where the rope starts pulling the side of the screen. But it's another big slide. Okay. And then we never get a sense that the head is pulling, that the upper body is engaging, that chain of action is what's causing the motion. It's just sort of happening. Yeah, Worms, for the Transformer stuff, which is coming up, ILM gave us It was the official version of the Transformers rig, but and model, but it was the medium resolution version. So that meant that it had tons of geometry missing inside of it, and we'll take a look at that. I think it's coming up pretty soon after the open season stuff. But that meant in the actual movies, they had a version that was hyper dense with mesh. Because, first of all, our medium version was so dense that it was so slow to animate. It really made the computer just awful. The frames per second was like 1 frame a second. And we didn't even have a lot of controls on it. It was just the basic human control rig. All the extra pieces and stuff I did myself in shot. So I don't think our computer could have even handled the super dense ILM. I mean, they were both ILM versions of the rig, but and model, but they just gave us the medium one. And I'll try and point out how it's the medium one, but if you look at it, it's still super crazy dense. So it's kind of a misnomer to call it medium. Good question. Okay, taking a look at some of the open season stuff now. Oh yeah. Here's another really bad habit I would have for cartoony stuff for a really long time. I would say way too long. I thought it would be really funny to do tons of quick motions like this without any anticipation. And you animators know that that's kind of like a sin. So both of those characters, the first one especially, he has a slow veer before he zips, and that's acceptable. What would have been better would have been a slow veer, and then a quick anticipation back, and then a zip. Little anticipations, even if it's just like 2 frames, just before a big action, will always really help. And I really pushed back on doing that for a really long time. I guess I had like the Family Guy style of animation in my mind was funny, where Peter's drunk or whatever, and he just 1 frame falls to the floor. That's funny for Family Guy. It doesn't super work in CG, at least not like this. And so I think this would have just been a lot funnier if these 2 characters had a little bit of the reverse direction before zipping out. McSquizzy, I like McSquizzy. He goes, me 3! He probably could have used an anticipation. Yeah, see? Look at me. I just go straight into the action. What he should have done was have a frame or 2 down before going into the action. Ugh. But yeah. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. So you guys know I'm not just being so hard on myself. Check out these walleyes. That's amazing. I love walleyes. I try to sneak them in anywhere, as many times as I can. A+ for walleyes, C- for anticipations. Here's a terrible open season shot. Open season 2. What's so terrible about it? Well, besides everything, the brows kind of... I think there's a little bit of offsetting between the left and right, but they really feel like they aren't offset. They don't feel like there's any offset from the inner brows and the outer brows. They all just kind of feel like they come down at once. The offsetting that's there isn't really good enough for me. His screen right eye is really hard to see for no good reason. I could have just ticked his head a little bit more towards camera and we would have had a much better readability on him. What else? You can see if you look at the chest, if you're looking down here at the body and his fur and tracking all that motion, this is another great example where you can see I'm not considering what he looks like from the side. I'm not considering that twist rotation as much as I should have. He's drunk and he should be a bit wobblier than normal. But if you look at that twist rotation in his, I keep wanting to go back to this shot, in his upper chest, in his lower neck, it's not really considered. I didn't really animate that. F+. What's so terrible about this next shot? It's not the worst, but again, if you could hear this with sound right now, if you remember, if you watched it earlier when we listened to this with sound, there's like these fat smacks. It's like wet, like someone smacking their butt when they just got out of the shower. And these impacts, none of them feel like they touch his fur, or let alone his skin. And there's a few reasons for that. One, we didn't have a very sophisticated system for looking at the fur in animation, so what we had was this proxy mesh that just puffed him out a little bit. It made him bigger. And we tried to use that as a base, but because the fur it's at different lengths all throughout his body, it's not a great representation. And you can see here, even though I was trying to use that proxy mesh, my impacts aren't fantastic. Here with this hand, I don't know if you can see my mouse, so I'm going to do a draw. So this hand here, it looks like the fingers are touching, but he's supposed to be wiping off his palms. So they really should be palm first, fingers maybe secondary on the impact. So palm and then fingers. And right now what we're getting is just the fingers scraping by the fur. Wouldn't make that fat slap sound that we hear in the animation. And then with his other hands, you can see that's more broadly supposed to be slapping his belly. You know, I've got all this movement on the belly fat shapers to show, but because we never see a little bit of a shadow here, I'll use a dark color. You know, and that's not the lighter's fault. That's because the hand actually is not really touching. It's not as close as it could be to the fur. And so it doesn't feel like it's touching because it's not. Yeah. There's other things wrong with all these shots, by the way. I could go on and on and on about the polish. But because there's so many of them, I thought it would be best to just talk about the main things that bug me. And then if you guys have questions or whatever, want to go back to any of them, or look at other stuff, or just talk shit, I'm open. Moving on. I guess, yeah, the thing about this shot's the worst is, what is the porcupine's name? I know this is Mr. Weenie. This is a very old project. This is Mr. Weenie. I think, oh, his name is Buddy. So watch Buddy. He's basically a bouncing ball, right? And all animators have done a bouncing ball assignment, if not many. But I think if we were to just take a look at my spacing, we would see exactly what my beef is. Let's see. Yeah. It might be hard to draw over and get a result, but I'm going to try it. So what I like to do to look for spacing, and when I'm doing notes, is I'll zoom way in, and I'll just draw the bottom of his body, and then I'll do it again on the next frame, and then I'll do it again. Dude. So you can already see there's a bigger jump between these two frames and that frame. But that might be an issue that we've converted to 30 frames for this video. Regardless, we'll get a good sense of this when the drawing is done. If the spacing could be much better. And true enough, it's not horrible, but it's bland. Here is better spacing. See how many ticks are at the top? How many ticks are at the bottom? Really milking this middle section. I'm not doing that as much as I should have. I was trying to get lots of hang time, but I think what ended up happening in this case was his jumps just feel kind of watery, especially that jump, that impact. You know, he comes down at the same speed that he comes up. Who am I talking to? I really need to get my camera down. So yeah, he comes down at the same speed that he comes up, so there's no what's the word I'm looking for? Contrast there. And yeah, just doesn't feel fantastic. This shot, I just wanted to point out from an acting standpoint, this guy, and I'll zoom in here because I've lost my zoom. This guy here, I believe his name is Earl from Open Season 2. Just look at all the stuff he's doing with his hands in these two shots. Pulling up my pants, gesturing, clap my hands, gesture, pull up my pants. That was, wow, that was a span of like 5 seconds. And I get that he's talking, but his hands aren't even, they're working at different speeds. He's like, which is funny if that was his shtick, but it's not his shtick. It's just kind of goes against what he's doing here, which is walking up to these guys and just trying to get their attention. There's the funny gag of him pulling up his pants. Sure, that's in there, and that could have been it. I think there could have been one, not another one here right before we cut, so it doesn't even read really. Plus he just did that put his hands together thing, and then he does this and then pull up the pen. It's just way too busy. Furthermore, this is the first time we've seen this character, I'm pretty sure, so for him to be so busy, we should be, you know, getting a sense for who his character is and not getting confused by his actions. Alright, enough picking on Earl. I've actually saved this file as the worst shot of my career for a long time. There's worse shots, and we'll talk about those, but what's awful about this one? First of all, let me find my position so I don't keep going back to Earl. So, a little backstory on this. Again, each character, this was a long time ago, one character in the rig made everything go 2 frames a second, really slow. 2-3 characters in a rig made it like 0.1 frames a second, really, really slow. You couldn't animate. It was very difficult to animate. So, normally what we would do is we would hide all the other characters that we weren't working on, or just hide pieces of the character, which would make the computer go a little bit faster, and then animate that way. When you have 20 characters touching all at once, there was no good way to animate that because the computer couldn't really have all those characters on the screen at once. At least back when we made this, which was 2008. And by the way, these names down here in the corner, if you see those are just the names of the lighter. Be nice to them. They did not contribute to these bad animations. They did their jobs nicely. So this one here, where to start? We have so many characters to look at. Just watch it. Not only is Elliot singing off key in this, and it's just horrible to listen to, it's just, from an animation perspective, really hard to animate. So all the characters on this outer ring here, if you watch them, they're not taking any steps. Let me start from the beginning here. Here they're just rotating. They're not taking any steps. Their body is not having any movement to show that they're taking steps. They're just hovering. And you could say, well, we don't see their legs. Well, that's true. I did that on purpose. I made it so all their legs are underneath their butts, so I didn't have to animate them. And I'm sure if you saw this at higher quality and looked for some leg shadows, you could see that. But, yeah, they're just... I'm trying to do as bare minimum as I could here because there was no time. And I think I was like a month late on this shot. It was the last shot to finish. It was miserable. You can see I spent some more time on Elliot and Giselle here compared to the rest of them because they were the point of the shot. That's understandable. But I didn't, I'm doing that thing where I'm not animating in 360 again. When you watch them come up to camera and back, that depth animation, if you know what you're looking for, you can see that it's kind of hitchy. It's not as smooth as it could have been if I were looking at things from this angle and really finessing those curves. I don't think I could have had the time to do it with the way that these rigs were back then. And it's not just the rigs, it's the computers, the network. It was a culmination of things. I'm not throwing anyone under the bus with these notes. All right. Now, what's bad about this? It's I think the main problem for me. YouTube is saying I'm having internet issues again. Sorry, guys. Hopefully it's better. Okay. So, where were we? The dancing. I think the worst part about the dancing is that this motion isn't being considered from the hips, but also the spine, the head, and the neck. They're very stiff. They're doing this. It's like, okay. And that would be fine if we were supposed to show that these guys are stiff, but no, they're supposed to be into it. They're supposed to be having a good ballroom type dance. You can also see from a certain angle, you can see that the hand is not getting enough contact on that shoulder fur because you can see right through. Nitpicky thing. All right. Let's get out of open season land. Real quick, what's bad about this? Watch Ursa and Boog's upper chest and shoulders. Particularly the shoulders, but a little bit of the upper chest as they're juggling. There's nothing in her shoulders. There's nothing really in her upper body. If I were juggling that fast, like, look at how much my shoulders, my upper back moving around. You could even take that motion and reduce it down to 20%, but that would still help. It would still feel unified. Right now, we just have arms that kind of feel like they're their own creatures and not connected to her body or his body. I won't talk about this one too much because it's kind of a lot to dig into, and we've talked a lot of open season, and a lot of it is the effects that doesn't really mesh with the animation all that well. But I will show it. Here it is. Look at that. That doesn't really... Okay. I do like McSqueezy's animation. Not too shabby. Okay. Secrets of the Furious 5. I'm pretty happy with Shifu here. I'm pretty not happy with Poe. Why is that? I'm being really nitpicky. But Secrets of the Fury are... Kung Fu Panda is a really quality animated film series, and I don't really think that's hitting the quality bar. If you look at sort of his spine, his upper body, and his neck mechanics as he turns, there's just a lot of competing movements. His body's moving one way, but his head's turning the other, and they're not really happening in a way that's... connected in a way that makes sense. His arm just kind of falls downward in a very sort of unanimated way. If you look at his screen left arm, again, that feels just parented to his upper body. There's even I think a bit of a pop here. Pop. Again, I'm being really nitpicky. Pop, pop. Maybe not really a pop, but it hitches. I'm being really nitpicky, but I just don't think there's the level of polish that we're used to seeing on Poe here. I just wanted to talk about this guy here. Again, I wasn't really good at ball bounces, I don't think, back then, because this guy jumps twice. They're all bunnies, right? So they should be jumping. I'm talking about this dude here. He jumps here, and that jump arc, that jump spacing, that's not so bad. Could be better, but it's not awful. But then he jumps again, and these jumps are hovery. They're floaty. It's nice to have some hang time at the top of the jump, but you don't want to have floatiness in the middle. It's no longer a jump. And of course, I'm exaggerating, but that's the sense I get. It doesn't feel as nice as that first big jump. And then, So, yeah. It would take me a really long time to really, I don't want to say master, but understand that spacing needs to be a very important part of animation throughout the whole process. Transformers, I believe, Worms, you were asked about the model and stuff. Yeah, so, we're basically showing off the model with this little short here. And so you can see, pardon the crappy compression, but you can see there's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of details here in the eye, and the whole body is like that. There's a lot of detail everywhere you go. Yeah, I think the Play Blast is the best to see. It's not low detail. It's just what ILM had on top of this version, which is like a super Omega. You need a NASA computer to run this thing. And so this was stripped down. But, let's talk about what's successful about this first, instead of just ragging on it. Because you see all these little pieces that are slightly moving and closing up on top. Very little of that was actually rigged, because rigging was swamped and had a lot of other projects going on at the time. I need to set my marker so I don't keep going back. So, a lot of these pieces that are moving, I just put my own animation clusters on and sort of moved around myself on top of the rig that was provided for me. So that was pretty cool. And I did the same thing with this transformer moment here. So all those pieces were just me individually, frame by frame, moving. It was chaos. But I'm not here to pat myself on the back, because now that I'm older, all I can see is what's wrong with it. And what's wrong with it is this walk. I mean, you guys can't see my legs because I didn't do a good job with my camera placement, but I can draw. So, like, from the side view here, I don't need a red panel, thank you. Generally in a walk cycle, you want to have a straight leg, or a straight-ish leg, when the leg is stepping forward. Probably not in a transformer, because they are blocky and they got tons of stuff. So a straight-ish leg is acceptable for a transformer. Maybe a little bit more than this. Somewhere in between this leg and this leg is okay. But I think what's happening in this animation, or at least that's what it feels like, is this is as straight as his leg ever gets. He's walking like a dumpy weirdo. And again, I think going back to one of my major pitfalls for a very long time is I wasn't considering this from the side view enough. I'm sure I did at several points, but not enough. So let's watch this again and really take a look at the legs and how they feel like they never fully extend. Like he's taking baby steps. Also, there's a lot of it's very A, B, A, B, A, B. You know, there's never a C or a G introduced. And also, it's could have felt weightier because the ups and the downs are feeling a little bit the same. The downs could have felt heavier. So all these things kind of betray the character. He doesn't feel as badass. And of course, the assignment for me was to make him feel badass. You know, hit a cool pose. Walk in, hit a cool pose. I am Optimus Prime. But he's not as tough as we've seen him. Some of these poses are weak because I wasn't fully structuring them from every angle. Really getting that game animation mentality. Because it'll look right from camera, but I tell you, it'll look worlds better if it looks great from every possible angle. And then lastly, taking a look at the arms. It's not as bad in this one, but it's a little bit bad. It's much worse in the next one. But his arms, again, I'm exaggerating. Where's my camera? He's kind of like this. It's a little bit too tough guy, because a real tough guy lets his arms swing more, you know? So the arms are like this, then they swing out. There's more of this kind of twisting motion. I got none of that. I'm kind of like, Hi, I'm Optimus Prime. Very stiff. See how much my chest isn't doing much? It's kind of how he is. So let's watch it again. I will say the one down feels good in the chest and the head because all that comes down and overlaps nice, but I'm not a huge fan of much else. Word. And now this one's much worse. Watch this. I'm going to turn off the white filter. Watch this run. Watch the arms. They aren't swinging like a normal person would swing their arms. They're not even swinging like a transformer would swing their arms, I don't think. One thing that's hurting here a little bit is they sped up the footage. They sped up what I animated. So we're looking at, whoops, not what I animated. But that's not going to fix bad posing, right? And I think just bad posing was what's happening here because I'm animating like this. You know, I'm never letting the arms turn forward. I'm never letting them swing forward. They're kind of swinging at a weird angle. I will say the transformation is pretty badass. Not my best work, but still pretty sweet to watch. Like, it just feels nice to watch. If you just don't look at the arms, it's not the worst. And I wonder about the legs, but they don't feel like stumpy like the run felt. Maybe it's because we don't see them as well. We're higher up in frame. But it's probably because I spent more time from the side view and made sure that those strides felt. Like you get that leg all the way out before it lands and bends. Was there any Transformers questions? Or anything else? Vaughn, I'm glad you think this is cool. Cheers to you. I seem to have lost the music entirely. There we go. Okay, hopefully the music is not too loud. Let me know. I brought it back. Despicable Me, Minions Ride. If you were listening before, and I said that open season dance video was the worst shot of my career, this project would take the next one. Not this one, but the next one. So what's awful about... It's actually not that bad, this one. But the next one, let's move right to that. Okay, so there's a lot going on here. Like, literally hundreds of minions are happening here. So, could spend a lot of time on it, but I won't do that. Again, I'll just kind of quickly talk through some of the pitfalls that we've already talked about in the past, is that I wasn't spending enough time in my perspective views, making sure the arcs of that hover plane that they're driving here were as clean as they could have been. For instance, here it rears back right there. Let me step through it. Here it rears back, but then kind of hits a wall. But it still keeps translating back. So that's it. It shouldn't have. It should have rotated backwards, stayed that way, moved backwards, and then even back out. And that's not really happening. So a lot of those kind of details. But who's looking at that? What we're all looking at is the banana, right? Well, okay, that banana animation is not fantastic either. It's probably difficult for you to tell on this shaky camera recording of it. But that banana is jittering around. That banana is jittering around because at the time I didn't really have a good way to handle this. You know, not only is she, the girl Edith, holding a fishing pole, a long fishing pole, with a hanging banana on the end. That hanging banana needs to come from very far away on this hovering spaceship thing, by the way. It needs to come very close into the camera. It needs to not jitter around because it's following all the stuff beneath that chain. No, it needs to be nice and smooth into camera. And yeah, so I didn't really have a good way, and the technical knowledge I have now, to set this up in a way that didn't make my life a nightmare. So I was keying it on ones, really trying to force it to get it to look clean, and it's really jittering around. I wonder how much more noticeable it is in the theater, but I know it's there so I can see it. And then, of course, these minion guys talking about slow computers and just high character counts and all that mess. These guys aren't very polished. I didn't have the computer speed. I didn't have the time. This guy really could have used more frames for his jump. It happens so fast right now, his jump up onto the banana, that it almost feels like he gets sucked up into it. You know, and it would have been much stronger if we see him get down, hang there for a second, jump up, hang in the air for a little bit so we know he's in the air. Not that we have so much time to do that, but I suspect we could have afforded to put some more frames than we had, because really hard to even see that. And I suspect I did it so quick because it was really difficult to animate this stuff and polish. So quicker things are easier to polish. Is there anything else I want to talk about in this shot? Thankfully, the minion hand full of minions, I didn't have to animate every single individual minion. There was a lot of crowd work involved here, a lot of crowd simulation stuff happening, but I want to say that most of these guys in the front here were hand animated, in addition to these, of course, these three guys. It was not a fun thing. Freebirds! I have 2 Freebird shots to talk about. If you guys have any questions, hit me up. Otherwise, I will keep going. I will keep jamming. Again, the polish of this is not horrible. What is really egregious, I hope I'm saying that right, is the foundations of it. I'm going to play it and see if you can spot the thing that is really wrong about it. Yeah, so for me, again, we need to think about what this looks like outside of our little window, outside of our little camera. Because great animation is structurally sound. It comes from real dynamics and real post structure and balance. I'm not looking at any of that when I'm animating this shot. I am looking at this camera only, not animating legs, not considering what they look like from the side, not considering their balance. And because of that, I made a really rather large mistake. As Woody Harrelson Bird comes in here, take a look at the height of his head. It's here. A little bit shorter than Owen Wilson Bird. So he comes in, and he gets a little lower. You can argue, sure, he's bending forward. He gets a little lower. So what are his legs doing then? Okay, so what's happening from the side view is this guy's up on a little step, the spaceship step, and then the ground's down here. And because this guy's actually already taller than Owen Bird, he's kind of down here. So, what are his legs doing? Well, you know, it would be really weird for him to be bending down because Owen Wilson Bird's higher than him. So his legs got to be, you know, straight out. They got to be, you know, reaching up, especially if he's bending over. So all of that we can say is true and happening off screen. So then that's fine. Okay. He pushes Woody Harrelson Bird off and gets even shorter. Okay. So we saw him bend down and get shorter because we could assume that he's just leaning forward. So then when he rights himself and comes back, how does he get even shorter? That would mean that he has to just drop down and bend his knees a lot. So it's it doesn't make sense. He should have stood up and been a little bit higher, and his height should have been thought about. If I animated him, his legs, then that would have figured itself out, but I just didn't consider it because I was being a corner-cutting animator. Worms T17 asks, what lesson did you learn from doing Crash 4 into Ratchet and Clank? Let's see. I think Ratchet and Clank is coming up soon, so we can talk about it. Now it's a few more away, so I'll answer the question now. Crash Bandicoot taught me a lot about working in cartoony games, how to make that work in engines, and it also really taught me a lot about supervising, because it was one of my biggest supervising jobs. Ratchet and Clank, I needed a break from supervising. I wanted a break from even being a lead. They asked me to be a lead on that, and I said, no, I just want to animate for a while, guys, because I'm burnt out on the lead work and the supervising work. So I just wanted to have fun on Ratchet and Clank, and I did. What did I learn on Ratchet and Clank? I learned I really upped my game on recording live action video reference and animating off of that. You know, this is something I've been doing since college because they made us. But I was never really great at it. And I was never really great at putting my reference in my animation scene and really studying it and using it and not overusing it in a way that makes your animation feel like it's just copied from live action. Finding the essence of it. So we did a lot of that on Ratchet and Clank because they asked us to do live action reference for every single piece of animation that we did, no matter how mundane. You know, Clank only has a mouth, jaw. Like, he's got a little bit of lip movement, but you know, there's not a ton of face to go off of, but they would still have us do live action reference for our face animation. So I got really good at that. Or at least I got a lot better at it. I still don't feel comfortable calling myself really good, but for Crash, I don't think really very few animators did live action reference for their shots, and I don't think they ever showed me. It was more for their own use. So it was very different worlds of animating. I asked the animators on Crash to all be very design based, very visual, think about their poses like drawings. And it was the complete opposite with Ratchet and Clank, where they wanted us to be more based in real motion, based in real acting, based in real physicality. And I think it was a great way to get to a high quality bar quicker, because